everyone. This is Kelly from Kelly's Quest. Today I'm sitting down with Marisa Richmond from Tennessee, a longtime advocate, activist, historian, friend of mine. And to be honest with you, Marisa, you have been a role model of mine for many, many, many years, way back in the early 90s, when I first decided that, I can no longer hide who I am from the world. You were one of the first people that I came across in media or in word of mouth back then of someone that I should get to know and to follow and to learn from. And I feel very fortunate that I managed to make that happen. And I want to thank you for being the person that made it possible for me to feel more comfortable coming out in the state of Tennessee in the early 90s, even though I did chicken out and detransition. And I like to remind people that I did detransition back in the mid 90s because I think it's important for people to understand that just because a person detransitions does not mean that they are not transgender. Maybe that is why they detransition, but that's not always the case. And in my case, it was more because of social pressures. It was because of family. It was because of work. It was because of financial situation that I detransitioned. And I learned over time that I had the ability to make a way through life, even if I was going to lose my family, my social network, and things like that. And part of the reason that I felt comfortable doing that was because I had built a network down in Tennessee for the next time that I transitioned or affirmed my authentic self, that I was ready for all of those things to happen. And I give you and a lot of other people in Tennessee credit for making that happen. So thank you so much, because I kind of owe my authenticity to people like you that laid the groundwork before I ever even came along and acknowledged my authentic self. So thank you.
Well, thank you, and glad to have you part of out and being your authentic self.
So I know you're down in Tennessee and you recently retired. Congratulations on that. But is retirement treating you well, or is it one of those things that you're now working harder than ever now that you're retired?
Well, I'm getting all these requests. I'm trying to turn as many of them down as possible. Um, so I don't want to just be overwhelmed by things, but I still have some things to do. I stay busy, um, but I admit, although I miss being in a classroom with students, I don't miss the commute to work. Don't miss having to drag myself out of bed at 7 or even 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't miss writing papers and then listening to the complaints about the grades. So those parts of the jobs I don't miss at all. But I do admit I miss being around students and talking about, especially a lot of things that are happening now that are relevant to the study of history, which is what I taught.
And now, where were you a professor at?
Middle Tennessee State University. It's in Murfreesboro, about 30 miles southeast of Nashville.
And if my Southern accent comes back out a little bit as I'm talking with you, thank you so much, because I miss it every once in a while. So I appreciate it.
Well, you need to come back home, and we can go out and get some good Southern food together.
Yes, we do absolutely need to do that. My wife, Adina, she said to say thank you and to hello to you, and she really wants to meet you. She's like, she follows you on all of your social media sites, and she's a real big fan of yours. And she goes, we have to go down and meet her sometime. So I'm taking that as an invitation that I will accept.
Good.
So a couple of the things that I want to talk about today with you is, since you're a history professor, I want to look at the transgender community from a historical perspective. Like, how far back in history is there actual evidence that we have existed? Because if I was born and I'm transgender, I'm assuming that transgender people have been around as long as humans have been around. And also, has there ever been true research done in the past on helping trans people? Because I know right now there's this push that, oh, look, all of a sudden these trans people are here in the world and they never were here before. And I know that's not true, because I have role models. You had role models. So if we could talk about a historical perspective of what it means not necessarily to be trans, but what it meant to help trans people and how trans people have navigated through history. That would be fantastic. And I guess a good starting place is, as I'm on social media, I'm hearing about this place in Germany back in the 1930s, the Institute of Sexuality, I think it was called. And
Correct.
if you could give a little bit of a perspective about that institution, if you have any knowledge of it, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. It was founded by Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, and so it's sometimes referred to as the Hirschfeld Institute. And he was an openly gay man in Berlin, but he took an interest in the whole spectrum of the LGBTQ community, and he was particularly interested in working with trans women and trans men as well in Berlin in Germany, and it became sort of a central focus for a lot of the research. Hirschfeld's archives included photographs, interviews, all sorts of scientific literature and books on a wide range of top topics. His 1910 book called Transvestites kind of helped introduce that particular term, although he was using it in a slightly different term. He was talking more about transsexuals, but he just happened to use the term transvestites for his book. And that book is still available. You can find it, although I don't recommend you order it through Amazon. Um, but it is available out there, and you should be able to find it and read it. And it's a fascinating book and one of the earliest scientific looks at transsexualism and transgender identities. He and as a result of the institute, a lot of trans people, especially across Europe, moved to Berlin to work with Dr. Hirschfeld, and among them was Lily Elbe, who formed the inspiration for the book and movie The Danish Girl. She was from Denmark, moved to Berlin to work with Hirschfeld, and as far as we know, had the first documented sex gender affirming surgery. Unfortunately, she died shortly after that surgery in 1931. There was an original book about Lily Elbe called Man into Woman. It was written in German. It didn't have the huge impact that people like Christine Jorgensen had later, in part because it was in German and had to be translated, and in part because she died shortly after the surgery. But she died a woman she wanted to be. Unfortunately, 2 years after her death, as we know, the Nazis took over, and in May of 1933, they staged an invasion of the Institute, and they pulled out all the books, the photographs, the oral history interviews, everything, and put them in a huge bonfire. The Hirschfeld's Institute was the largest, most comprehensive sex archive in the entire world in 1933, and it went up in flames because of the Nazis. Hirschfeld himself and his partner were in France on vacation, and they saw the burning on the newsreel, and they never returned to Germany. And Hirschfeld kind of died. Well, didn't kind of die. He did die 2 years later in 1935. And there's just so much information that he had collected at that archives that the Nazis destroyed, and intentionally trying to erase our history.
So I remember seeing images of the Nazis having burning books. And there's this
Right.
famous one of this huge, huge, huge bonfire with just stacks and stacks and stacks and stacks of books. Is that
Yes.
from the Institute? Is that image, that famous image of those books from the Institute being burnt?
Yeah, absolutely. And another twist I point out to my students, because I was teaching queer history before I retired, the branch of the Nazi Party that did that, or the SA, known as the Brown Shirts. Well, just about 13 months later, they were purged from the Nazi Party because they were mostly gay. And they were eliminated through what is known as the Night of the Long Knives. So there are pictures showing them almost gleeful, destroying this material to erase trans history. and then they themselves were erased just a year later.
So the history that he had accumulated was erased, but trans people were still existing back then. So
Right.
we weren't erased, but the knowledge that was accumulated about us and about what we needed and who we were was attempted to be erased. So
Yeah.
it succeeded in pushing back knowledge, but it didn't erase us because we're still here. And I feel
Yeah.
like there's a correlation.
Yeah. I was just going to say, unfortunately, you know, Hirschfeld, not only was he heartbroken in seeing the material destroyed, but he also was worried about the people he left behind in Germany. Because, like I said, he was in France on the day of the burnings and the bonfire, and a lot of those people were picked up and put in concentration camps, and the you know some of them forced to wear pink triangles, others forced to wear black triangles, which was a term the Nazis they labeled black triangle wearers antisocial, and so we were antisocial, and many of them thrown into concentration camps. Susan Stryker, who many of your listeners probably are familiar with, she found a story about a person called the White Lady of Dachau, and that refers to the white robe she wore, and she died at the Dachau concentration camp. And Susan believes that is one story of a transgender person in that particular camp. And there's probably many other people like that person who died in these camps whose names are forgotten and did not leave behind some sort of story or some sort of legend.
And that's part of
But
the
they
reason.
racist.
Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Part of the reasons that I like that I'm doing my show is I want to chronicle our stories because I feel like storytelling, hearing who we are, experiencing our lives through our own words, helps create a community for people like other trans people that are nervous about coming out, other people that have no idea what it means to be trans, but they want to help us um, push back against what is going on in our nation right now. And it almost feels like that over the last couple of years, we've heard about book bans. We've heard about our the letter T being erased from federal archives and from federal park systems and from federal uh, just anything you can think of right now. There's a push to make that happen. And am I mistaken in feeling like they're basically pulling from that exact same playbook that the Nazis used and they're just repeating it again, thinking, oh, it didn't work that time, but maybe it'll work this time? Or is this something that's completely different that's going on right now? Or is it just a rehashing of the exact same type sentiment towards trans people?
For a lot of us who are historians, it does feel like a repeat. We're seeing, as you noted, the erasure from uh, 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 any sort of effort to document our history, the removal of trans mention at the Stonewall Monument, although the Stonewall Inn itself is fighting back. Their C3, 501c3 arm, Stonewall Inn Gives Back Initiative, changed their Facebook profile page picture to the trans pride flag. So that's their way of making sure that everybody understands that the Stonewall Inn itself recognizes the role of trans people. Um, uh, uh, just I just posted yesterday. I mean, I know we're taping this for a later broadcast, but we're seeing presidential libraries being closed, and so they're going after archives in general. Um, and so they're trying to change history, erase history. They're going after the National Archives Service, um, and um, and removing references to trans people on healthcare sites, education sites. Um, and as if we simply don't exist, and we absolutely are here. And I'd like to go back to one thing you had asked right at the very beginning about, just in history in general. We know the ancient Sumerians had trans people. They had a term krigara, which specifically were for some of their priests, who dressed in women's robes, and some were even castrated. And this was their way of getting in touch with the goddesses, and many other civilizations in the ancient world had sort of similar roles for their priests, and recognized cross dressing, and gender diversity, and we see that continuing to the present day in India with the Hijras. And so, we have documentation dating back a minimum of 5,000 years. And who knows what was there prior to the invention of writing?
We were.
Yeah,
I feel like we were certainly there before the invention of writing, and who knows, maybe we had something to do with the invention of writing.
exactly, precisely.
It's just, I'm glad that you shared that, because I will always remember in 2018 when the state of Massachusetts, what happened was we were given rights to safe access to spaces, public spaces all through the state. There was a law put onto the books, and these people that didn't like that managed to get enough signatures to make it become a public ballot question as to whether or not trans people should have access to public spaces like everybody else. And they got enough signatures to where it actually became a voter's decision. And that's terrifying whenever you sit there and you think, wait, somebody somewhere else in the world has, or in the state, has the possibility to determine whether I can go into this restaurant, whether I can go into this store, whether I can go into this place or that place, and they get to vote on that right. That was terrifying. And we worked so hard in this state to make sure that we got to keep that right that we had been given through law. And luckily, we won. We came out on top, but it took a lot of campaigning. It took a lot of organizing. And I will always remember I was at one meeting, and this man who was probably 70 years old, maybe 75, he stood up and said, "This stuff is all so new. None of this has ever been around here before. This is all just things happening now." And I happened to be in the audience, so when they were letting people speak, I stood up and said, "Well, sir, actually, I'm 50 blah 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 years old, and I've been around all of that time, and I'm trans. So in fact, what you're saying is incorrect." And there's this perception that this is new, that what we are going through right now and what's happening with trans people, we've been around and we will continue to be around, because you can't erase birth. Like, we're going to be born. Like, there's just no way around it. What you can do is you can try to scare us from ever admitting who we are openly to the world. But my authentic self kept leaking out again and again and again, no matter whether I was presenting as a trans woman, whether I was presenting as a man, no matter how I was presenting to the world, my authentic self would leak out all of the time. And I just feel like this attempt to erase us is a fear-based attempt to scare us into acknowledging our authentic selves and to scare other people from helping us and supporting us.
And on top of that, if you consider what happened in New York to Sam Nordquist, you
Mm.
know, voting hate, promoting violence. So it's not just trying to erase us from history, but to literally erase us from the face of the earth. And so they're trying to give sort of aid and comfort to the haters.
Yeah, the Sam Nordquist story, that hit really close to home, because there was a person that came to another part of the country seeking safety, seeking love, and got the exact opposite and was
Right.
brutally tortured, brutally murdered. And it does it does give me trepidation sometimes to be my authentic self openly and loudly, but then at the same time I'm like, I'm not going backwards. I just can't. I it's not a comfort zone that I feel a part of to go backwards at this point in my life. I've already like I said, detransitioned once. I'll be darned if I ever do it again because I was miserable. I was absolutely miserable when I detransitioned. I didn't do it for because I didn't think I was trans. I did it out of fear. And I've learned that I can be afraid of something and still go live my life. It's okay to be afraid, but I can still go live my life. And I think that you're right when, they're actually physically trying to erase us, not just erase us from history books, but they're now trying to actually actively get people to erase us.
Yeah, and certainly being out is dangerous, more dangerous in some places than in others. Um, we've always, been trying to remind people to take their personal safety into account, and we understand why some people are stealth, why some people may feel it necessary to detransition, but at the same time, a lot of us are refusing to go stealth. We're still pushing forward. I think it was Charlotte Clymer the other day who wrote that we've taken 10 steps forward and 6 steps back, but that still puts us further along that road. And, we have to keep pushing forward because we have made progress. And we're better organized than ever before. We're visible. They're talking about us, which for a long time they didn't. We were trying to get some attention, and nobody would even say the word transgender on either side, both those who supposedly were our allies and those who were haters. But now, people know we're here, um, and especially for young people, I can understand why they're scared. They really have every reason to be scared because there's a lot of really bad things happening all over this country at the state level, local level, as well as the federal level. But at the same time, those of us who are adults and are out, we have to use our voices and whatever privilege we may have to speak up for those people and to fight for those people and to remind those in power that they have a responsibility to protect and defend the oppressed, the marginalized, the downtrodden.
You're talking about activism and using our voice. And like I said in the beginning, one of the reasons that I finally felt comfortable coming off my authentic self was because of your voice and your activism. And I would love for you to just kind of toot your own horn for a second, if you wouldn't mind, and let people know a little bit about the history of Marisa Richmond in the sense of what you have been doing, what you continue to do. I know that you're actively involved in Tennessee in politics as far as with the Democratic Convention down there. And I would love for you for just a second or a minute or so to just share what you have been doing.
Well, wow. um, I've been active and trying to play some sort of leadership role for over 30 years now. I'm in Nashville, and it we started initially. I helped found the local support group. It was originally called the Tennessee Vows. They changed their name about a year ago to the Middle Tennessee Transgender Alliance, um, and then in the 2003 shifted more towards politics, forming the Tennessee Transgender Political Coalition, and I was president for about 10 years there. Then I started getting more involved, as you noted, in Democratic Party politics. Um, I was originally elected to the Davidson County Democratic Party, and it's a popularly elected position. So I actually became the first openly trans person to win an election in Tennessee. It wasn't competitive, but I was on the ballot. Um, and So I served 8 years on the county party committee. I also became president of the Davidson County Democratic Women, and then I got elected a delegate in 2008 to the Democratic National Convention, and that year was in Denver, where we nominated Barack Obama for president. I became a delegate again 4 years later in 2012. We went to Charlotte and renominated Obama. I was a podium officer in 2016, so I was actually up on the stage. So I didn't have a vote, but I had a very visible spot right next to all the speakers in Philadelphia. In 2020, I became a DNC member in 2017, and that made me a super delegate in 2020. That year, of course, was virtual due to COVID, but we nominated Joe Biden. And then this past year in Chicago, I was a delegate again. So I've been a delegate 4 times. And so I was there in Chicago. We had the biggest group of transgender delegates ever. There were about 45 of us, although we were frustrated because we asked for 2 speaking slots. So we're talking 6 minutes and we didn't get them. And we were frustrated because the people around the country, unless they were following us as individuals, didn't know there were so many of us and we were diverse. We had our first Native American delegate from Minnesota. Um, we had an Asian American delegate in 2020. So we've got, blacks and Latinos and trans men, trans women. We're all over the spectrum. Of course, we were excited when one of our delegates, Sarah McBride of Delaware, got elected to Congress in November. And I'm following her very closely and with a great deal of excitement and pride. And we're seeing so many people all over the country stepping up in politics. And right here in Nashville, Olivia Hill is on our city council. In fact, I was texting her last night about a bill which ironically had nothing to do with the trans community, but I was so proud when she got elected and feel that I can reach out to her at any time, and I'm not abusing that relationship, but there are times I say this matters to me, and I hope you'll take this under consideration. And that's what we need. We need those seats at the table everywhere.
That's very, very true. We do need seats at the table. And Sarah is she's an inspiration to me. I've never met her or anything like that, but I listen to her speak, and the first thing that comes across to me is she is super intelligent. And she also knows how to talk to people in a way that expresses her thoughts about why this is a good idea. So she's super intelligent and she can let you understand in a way that a lot of people can't why she is promoting some of the things that she is promoting. Like I remember her saying, my main focus is on all of the people of Delaware that I represent, not just the trans community. And I feel like that's who we are as a people, because I understand what it's like to be brushed aside because I'm trans. And so I don't want that to happen to other people. I
Mm-hmm.
want all of the voices to have to be heard at the table. And I feel like she is excellent at that. I just feel like can, she has really brilliant ideas. And I think the reason that she's getting such a hard time from the right at this moment, every time she goes to speak, and it's like their little playground, let's go bully the trans kid type stuff that they're doing right now, is they're afraid of her. Like,
Yeah.
if they weren't afraid of her, they wouldn't be doing this. And they are afraid of her because she's intelligent. She can get things done. She can build bridges with other communities. And that's the exact opposite, it seems like, some people are wanting to happen with this country right now.
Right. Yeah. I mean, our visibility, our her articulateness, um, of her and so many others around the country. I chatted with Danica Rome, a state senator from Virginia, when we were in Chicago, And I met Zoe Zephyr at the Stonewall Inn a couple years ago. She's up in Montana, and as they and others are stepping forward, um, they're afraid because they're seeing us at our best. And what they're also seeing is that people are saying, "Hey, these people aren't frightening. These people are responsible. They care about the same things I care about." And that's what's freaking them out because they don't want people seeing that. They don't want people learning about who we really are. And that's why our visibility, especially from the elected officials, is so important.
Um, Also, I want to discuss just changing the subject completely. I know that you are a huge trivia quiz person. And you all, like, I just love following you all and like look in your records that you have with your little team that travel around and everything. And you all come up with some of the most clever names for your team that I have ever, like, it just makes me giggle, the names that you all come up with, because a lot of times they are very much central to what is happening right now in the world. And then other times they're like, I don't get that one, but I have it makes me go search to see, well, what is this name all about? And I'm just curious, how did you get into the pub trivia quiz games? And what is your favorite quiz team name that you all have ever come up with?
Um, well, let's see. Well, first off, I was on my quiz team in high school, so I've been doing this for years. And when I lived in D.C., I was hanging out in a neighborhood bar after work, and they had a trivia game. It was an electronic box, and we played. And then when I moved back to Nashville, one of the bars I was hanging out in picked up the same game, so I started playing that. And so the few of us, were playing with against each other and getting to be friends. And then when the bar they dropped the electronic game and then went to team trivia, so we started playing together as teams. And it's a lot of fun, and we enjoy each other's company, and it's intellectually challenging. Sometimes you learn a little something along the way.
And what are some of your favorite team names that you've had?
Oh, geez. Oh my God. Um, uh, oh, geez. Well, if you give me a minute, let me kind of look through my lists here.
While you're doing that, I'll just bring up the point that I'm in March. I'm going to go to my second pub quiz trivia team challenge, and the thing that I know the most about is the thing that they never ask questions about. It feels like so I'll always throw out answers thinking that I know what the answer is to something, and then one of those will be correct, and then all of a sudden I'll be like, yes, I knew that one thing, and all the other 20 things that I thought might be the answer were incorrect. But the group that we're bringing is a very diverse group of people, and that's what you need. You need people that have a specialty in science, people that are good at sports knowledge, people that are good at fashion. You need somebody that's good at pop history, trivia, TV shows. And nobody can be good at all of those things. Like, I can't imagine that there's ever been one person that's come to the pub quiz and sat down by themselves and won. Like, it's a team effort. And I feel like that's kind of what our community right now is doing. We're doing a team effort. I'm not good at this, but this person's good at that. So I'm going to bring them into my fold so that we can build on each other's experiences. And slowly but surely, you build this team that allows movement forward. And I feel like that you have been doing that for a long, long, long time, building a team of diverse humans that have specialties in a lot of areas that can get things accomplished. And that's kind of some of the role model stuff that you did for me without you even knowing that. It's like, wait, she's got all of these people that are doing these different things that's in her world. That's how you get things accomplished.
Yeah.
You don't just put everybody that thinks like you together and expect things to be accomplished. You might change things, but you won't accomplish things that way.
Yeah. I found, let's see, I'm just looking at some of the names we've had. Um, we had one, It's a Raining Men. Hallelujah. Uh, do the wider strike. Let's do the perp walk again. Uh, Bobert juice, Bobert juice, Bobert juice. I think you can remember what was going on that particular
Yep.
week. Um, there was one after the Oscars. Keep our name out your mouth. Might remember. So we try. So sometimes they're political, and sometimes they're not.
But they're always very on point.
Yes, we try to do that. Yes.
And so you had a match like a quiz. Are they called matches? Are they called games? Or
Yeah, trivia games.
okay, is it like a weekly thing that you do to go relax in life and
Yeah.
to
I'm actually now in two trivia groups. So one is every Tuesday night, and then the other one I'm playing right now is on Thursdays, first Thursday. Um, and although because of the snow, even 2 inches can kind of shut everything down in Nashville. So I don't expect to get out the tomorrow night to play trivia. Although we were talking about it, but everybody said, "Oh, let's just stay in on Thursday this week." Nobody wants to get out and try to drive in snow and ice, especially with all the hills we have around here.
right? And then I saw a post. I don't know if it was from you or from the Tennessee Equality Project that about how the state house is shut down tomorrow, which means a bunch of hate bills have been postponed because they can't come in and vote on those bills. What
Right,
so up here in Massachusetts, we're trying to put laws into place that make it more protective for the trans community and for marginalized communities. And it feels like in Tennessee, some of the exact opposite things are happening right now. Can you kind of
right.
shed a little bit of light on what's happening at the State House as far as some of the current bills and the current laws that have been enacted? And just kind of give the audience here in Massachusetts a feel for what's going on in other parts of the country.
Well, there are a couple of bills that would have been up this week. One that they're still fixated on bathrooms, and this would have to do with like dorms and camps um, that would segregate bathrooms, keep transgender people out of gender appropriate bathrooms at a summer camp or at a retreat of some sort, or in a dorm, especially like a college dorm or a high school boarding school. And so we're alarmed by that. There's a bill that they brought up last year that didn't go anywhere, but they're bringing it back that would ban pride flags. Um, and I put the pride flags on the front of my table in my classroom and talked about that bill. And again, and that it's blatantly unconstitutional. And when they did introduce this ban, so it'd be Black Pride and Queer Pride, Trans Pride, but it didn't ban Nazi or Confederate flags. And you might have seen Utah just did that. And we had a bill which just didn't pass last year, but it's back this year. And so, those are some of the things that we're dealing with now. Of course, we had the Supreme Court case that was argued in December, and that was a Tennessee case. Um, LW versus Scrimetti. And by the way, I have an amicus brief on that lawsuit. And that was a ban on trans youth health care. And so it passed, and our governor signed it. And so several families got together and filed a lawsuit against it. And so it's gone to the Supreme Court. So now we're waiting for the ruling, which we expect probably in June. Um, um, in some states, we're even seeing bans on health care for trans adults. But because this is specific to Tennessee, they've not introduced the bill yet. But we're concerned that if the other side wins, that we will see that bill up next year. There's a bill filing deadline in Tennessee, and so that's already passed for 2025. But we could very well see a trans adult healthcare ban introduced in 2026 if they win the Scrimetti case. And Scrimetti is Jonathan Scrimetti, the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee.
Um, so the healthcare one obviously affects anybody that's trans that is seeking healthcare. Does that mean that they're trying to make it impossible for you to get all kinds of healthcare, period? Or are they like trying to pick just this little bit of the thing that will help us affirm our authentic self?
Well, it is specific to transgender affirming healthcare, but um, it is creating headaches. A lot of people will go to one doctor who is trans affirming to get all of their health care. And so we're seeing one doctor move to Alabama, believe it or not, because Alabama is more liberal than Tennessee. That should tell you a lot right there. Yeah. And previously, we had the Vanderbilt University here in Nashville launched a gender clinic a few years ago. And it was a walk-in clinic out in one of the neighborhoods, and it got a lot of publicity. And we had a group of volunteers, and who were helping walk trans people through the medical resources at Vanderbilt, and it got widespread attention. Even USA Today picked up the story, and now they've gone after Vanderbilt. Of course, with the federal government cutting Title IX funds, Vanderbilt is shutting down all of its DEI programs. But again, the Attorney General Scrimetti at one point demanded medical data regarding those trans patients, and Vanderbilt handed it over. And those families and all those individuals were absolutely livid with the university. You're violating our HIPAA rights. And they said, well, the state threatened us. What were we supposed to do? We were like, you're supposed to fight back. That's what you're supposed to do. And so it's really turned significantly. And it's gotten very scary for a lot of people. And some people are leaving the state, some are leaving the country. And we, are doing everything we can to try to maintain some level of healthcare provisions for people, even if Vanderbilt isn't going to be there for them.
That's when you see big institutions cower, it has an impact on us, certainly. But one thing it makes me feel is I didn't cower. I went ahead and blasted through knowing that it was going to be hard, knowing that it was going to be challenging, but I knew it was the right thing to do for me to continue to be around on this lovely green earth that we have. And Tennessee has always been a conundrum, I think, for me. I lived there for 49 years of my life. Beautiful state. Some of the best people on the planet that I've ever met are from Tennessee, and I miss them dearly, and I wish I could see them more often. But for me, as an educator in public education, I was stuck in Tennessee, and I knew that I was not going to be able to live a fulfilling life there as an educator. And I made the choice to leave to come to Massachusetts. And it's a decision that I wrestle with all the time because, like you said, people are sitting down there now thinking, do I leave the state? Do I leave the country? But when I think back on the history of Tennessee, and this is where I want to kind of bring it back, is I know that there was a lot of Black civil rights movements in Tennessee. And if I'm not mistaken, isn't it in Greenville, Tennessee, or Morristown, where there's I can't think of the name of it, but there was a center for learning how to be a civil rights activist that people would come to.
Yeah, it's in Jefferson City, Tennessee now. It started down around Sewanee, and then got shut down. And yeah, it is operating. They shut it down back in the 60s because they were pushing for things like integration and educating Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And it's still operating. It's still training civil rights leaders. It's really frustrating that there is so much hostility towards towards education and towards social activism. And we're doing the best we can, to fight back against all that hostility. It's the Highlander Institute.
That's it. That's it. The Highlander Institute. Look at that research, education. It pays off. Who would have thought?
Yeah, my mind just went blank there for a minute. So,
and I keep telling people the story of my hometown of Clinton, Tennessee, was one of the first school systems around to integrate. And Green McAdoo School has an area there that's a museum that you can go learn about what it was like for residents of Clinton, Black residents of Clinton, when the integration happened. And
right.
So I'm really hoping that when we get on the other side of this, the pendulum will swing even further towards love and kindness. That's my hope.
I hope so too.
Marisa, it's always been a pleasure talking with you. And if you have anything left that you would like to share with the audience, please feel free to do so.
Just hang in there, everybody, and be strong.
That's what we'll do. And give your kitty cats a rub on the head for me.
I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Bye, Marisa. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Thanks for listening.